morning, everybody. Welcome to the Horsemanship Remark Show. It is 6:31 in Oregon. It is the last show of April 2022, and I'm excited to be here with all of you. I have to be inside, which kind of is lame compared to being outside at Gary's in the sunshine with my sandals on.
Sandals?
Not right now.
I know, but it's that warm down there.
Well, on Wednesday, so I got there Tuesday and they had normal weather. I mean, normal spring weather, 65 degrees, high of 65, and some 70 plus degree days. So we're out there working on Wednesday and we're just like, oh, it feels hot, because it had rained on Tuesday. Well, it was 93 degrees.
My gosh.
We didn't wrestle. We're like, well, you see on some of the videos we did for Horsemanship Insider, you'll see the horses are sweating. Like, well, they kind of walked out there sweating.
Yeah.
Not that they don't sweat normally, but just it was kind of a lot. And we were just dehydrated by the end of the day. Yeah. What's going on?
You really do just sit on the fence if you're out there wearing sandals.
I was just wearing sandals for the show.
Oh, in the morning.
Yeah.
Got it.
And Gary's like, oh, what are you doing walking across the grass in sandals? I'm like, what? He's like, you're going to get chiggers. And I'm like, what in the hell are those?
Yeah, don't go rolling in the grass when there's chiggers handy.
Yeah, or walking across the grass was so short I got away with it. But I didn't know what it was until that day. And then he was like, well, you won't know till tomorrow. I'm like, oh.
You avoided chiggers then. That's good.
Yeah.
The horse that I referenced last week about that just kind of had been terrorized and very reactive. The one that would whip out of it when you put the rope over the other side of their body. That's Irene's horse. It's also the horse that last year when she was here, I said it was a horrible ride. The horse is just unpleasant. So we've been working with her.
Cool.
Getting about not whipping out of there. Found some different ways to interrupt it. In trying to interrupt it, I would kind of hold her, straight or hold her head there, even as the rope would go on the other side. And I'd put it around there. She'd be frantic. And then I'd drop the rope on the other side and, just keep her from, don't have her unwind out of it. But there were a couple times as I was doing that where I had a pretty short rope. So it was just barely over her tail. And then I'm holding the other rope up near her head, or the other end of the rope. And just to be able to reach the other end of her body, I had her kind of bent away from the direction she would be bent if she were turning. And she was just head on sideways, biting at, just this horse had clearly had her head tied around at some point and just pissed off about the whole thing. But anyway, it's getting better. Like I said, I found different ways to interrupt. She'll still, if she gets a little bit of a panic as she's unwinding, it just turns into a real reaction coming out of there. But it's been interesting with her to watch her start to believe that there is a place to be that feels good, that isn't just going to be pressure, that she just has to kind of live through, tolerate at best, not even tolerate, just live through. Eventually this will go away, sort of thing. Like, this discomfort is temporary sort of thing, but not in a, I'm going to live through the discomfort and it's all going to be okay. It's more just like, oh God, like I have to put up with this.
Yeah.
So watching her go, oh. And it's kind of interesting some days, and it probably relates to how present I am and how much quality I'm able to offer at any given moment. Some days she finds that and it seems like she comes home, like, this is comfortable, I belong here, this is new, this is not something I've experienced a lot, but I want this for myself, right? And other days, it's like I have to convince her time and time again, or just repeat more over and over. So I'm trying to determine, like I said, I might be the variable there, what causes it to be one way or the other for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is some days maybe I'm expecting more, perhaps prematurely, whether it be the overall arc of what we're doing, or in that session going, okay, and we're going to do this and this and this today, rather than going, all right, let's start at the absolute basic. Just give me a drift to the hindquarters, shape your body right, and we can settle until she believes it. Then we can build on from there. Because at a certain point, you're like, why do I have to start at that most basic of elements? Like, can't you just come out of the box going, I remember yesterday and I believe it? But I mean, in reality, it probably only takes, a couple times of going, that's all I need. See, it's just not a big deal. And see how good it feels. So that's been interesting to think about with her. What else was I going to say about her? Oh, when I called you the other day, and it was her that we were talking about, where I was saying, she has a real hard time maintaining gait. She's just because of her history of just guarding and protecting and bracing against the person. The shoulder's always in, the head kind of tends to be up and out. When you'd ask her to move out in the round corral, it was just very much that shape. The shoulder's the inside, very heavy on the inside leg, inside front, pretty frantic movement. And then to get her to maintain gait, she had difficulty doing that. She'd go into the canter and a few strides, and then she'd drop out of it. And the more I was like, no, you got to maintain it, and kept coming in, and she just wasn't finding it. And, it's we've been talking about it before in your Maggie video. Like, there has to be a measure of balance for them to maintain gait. Otherwise, they're just going to go splat. And that's just absolutely what it was. So it's like, well, out there, I don't have the influence of being able to shape her quite as much as I do when she's close, where I can do a little drive at the shoulder. I can influence the flexion with the lead rope. It's like, well, how am I going to get her to stand up out there enough that she can free maintain gait, loose, in the round corral? Because I was like, how does Gary do it, basically? That's what I asked you. And you said he does a jump rope with the lariat. Went around their neck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got a halter on him. So I didn't do that. She's been a little off, so I didn't have her in the round corral moving out. But yesterday I started messing with that, just the halter and lead rope. So this is a little bit, she's like going, there's all this pressure on the halter. But I just would jump rope the lead rope, swinging it as she's going around. And, she really did feel that and go, whoa, come up to the outside, shape around me. Her head was maybe up a little bit at first because the lead rope's kind of swinging around. But as soon as she took that shape, same as every other time, she'd find the right shape, and you release and allow her to soften into that. And so then she'd kind of find that, heads up, oh, okay, and the head comes down, and she just rolls out of it. So that was kind of neat. Never done it. It felt like kind of loose and, like I said, a bit chaotic because it was on the shoulder rather than a rope around the neck. But I saw in different format how what you described, or it worked.
Speaking of Gary, oh my gosh, I did not at all think that I was going down there to video anything. So
I'm happy to hear. This is fantastic news.
yeah. So I have, if I publish something of Gary once a month at Horsemanship Insider, we probably have a year's worth of videos.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. So you guys are going to get to see the last rope. Him working, basically halter breaking. You're going to get to see that. You're going to get to see first saddlings. We didn't do any first rides this time, but the flag on the legs, the coils all over, how he does the saddle pad, flagging. Oh, the tail. We have a great one of one of the sorrel horse. Yes. This sorrel horse that, you know, really had trouble with the tail. A first saddling that was a little bothersome and another one that was pretty smooth. But, you know, these are things that you'll get to see for sure. Some of the things that I've been talking about, and also some of the things that he's been talking about. So, which is a great relief to me because I won't be having to try to describe it, you know, for you guys. So, one thing that I've been thinking about with the colt starting, and for those of you guys that are horsemanship insiders, I just have to decide like where I'm going to do that. Like if that should go under backstage pass or should colt starting be because I'm not going to do any colt starting content. And really Gary could change his mind at any time and be like, no, I don't want to do that. But for right now, I guess we could put it under a separate bucket there. But here's the thing. A few people aside, most of us are not going to be colt starting, and certainly not at this level. But I do think the point is that all of those things that are at the beginning and getting to see them with a legit touchy, they're not, I mean, none of the horses we filmed were overly touchy horses or overly wild, but they were clean, you know, so that will all apply to our older horses. Although Gary is starting colts at the absolute highest level. He's starting with wild horses, not Mustangs, but you know, colts that come in 100% clean. So we'll get to see that. And first saddlings and first halterings. I mean, who sees a first haltering usually with a proper roping? And the other cool thing that I think we're all gonna like is we did one on foot, and then like I think we did a whole day where he roped them on foot and started from there. So I think people will enjoy that. And then he used Pendleton for another one, so we'll get to see both. But I'm sitting on the fence filming him work the colt off the saddle horse, right, with the flag. And just, it's what I've been trying to describe in terms of the geometry. And I'm just sitting there like all trying to be calm, but inside I was like, yay. So the point is that it will apply to our aged horses, even though it won't look exactly the same. And just because the, you know, the overlay is just going to manifest itself differently on horses, just like Irene's horse, as you're saying, you know, one with a lot of baggage or even just one that has a bunch of experience. So
I mean, just a couple little bits that you have posted of Gary or our conversation the other day. On the one hand, it's like the video gave me a picture that is kind of like not an aspiration in the sense that I never see that, but I'm talking about the making the corner, hooking on with all 4 feet in balance and just round and straight, all of it coming straight forward. When I see that, it's like, yes, there, right? Like I have a clear picture of exactly what I want it to look like. And so I'm able to recognize, yes, that was it, or still want, it's not there, what do I got to do, as opposed to, oh, you know, it's good, right?
yeah.
And sometimes you go, well, that's good, it's not there yet, but I'll take what I got, you know. It's just not complaining because we are hooking on. There is elements of it here, but we're not done yet, right? This could be more balanced. It could be more connected. It could be more free, whatever. So anyway, one thing, on one hand, you know, just that little picture, which yes, it's a 2 or 3 minute video, just clarifying, but it is only about 10 to 20 seconds of the horse actually hooking on. And that was Gary describing it. Anyway, so there's that hand, or one part. And the other piece is just having Gary on and talking about different things, or your mentioning to me the other day about the last rope, which I'm looking forward to seeing, just causes you to think and explore different things. Like, all right, well, how might I do that? Or how, especially having not seen it, it just makes you start to explore, I guess. I don't know. Because I wouldn't have done the lead rope, jump rope on the halter, trying to get her to stand up in that manner. But I was like, oh, let's try it. Even though I didn't have the last rope on her.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly, I guess, the point is because I'm certainly not going to be using a 60-foot lasso rope without some legit practice, right? I suppose I could spend my time and work up to that, but it's not going to happen right away. So exactly being able to apply it for where I am, or even like, because I've seen him do that for years. And you guys, what we're talking about is when he first ropes a colt, and let's say he swings a loop and catches the horse, obviously over the head and in front of the shoulder, and then gets it sort of up near the throat latch, and we'll be swinging the last rope in the direction that the horse is going. And I've seen him do that for years, and it really does help them stand up off of the inside shoulder. Maybe not right away in the first second, but as they smooth out, it definitely does. So whilst I'm not going to use a 60-foot lasso rope, and I basically have no prayer of roping a horse right this second, I absolutely can use the picture of that with my flag, with my coils, with my rope, in everything. What does it look like when a horse is doing that? Basically from a suggestion, not from force, and certainly from far away, right? So to me, I think what you guys are really, really going to enjoy, that I have certainly benefited from over the last 6 years, is watching a horse change their mind, and really change their mind, and go from being all over the place to right in the middle. I'll never get sick of that. Gary's like, this is so boring. I'm like, dude, no. It's just not. It'll be cool to see. But I'm glad it's a perfect example, our conversation. Say good morning, Wilder. Did you read the
I didn't.
You didn't?
Are you talking the picture you sent, or of the page, the book? You sent it what time yesterday? I've been going nonstop. I got freaking kids. I started reading it, but I was like, okay, I need to sit down and think about this one as I read it.
Okay.
Tell me about it. Tell the people.
I can't very well is the thing. I was going to rely on you to sort of, yeah. So you guys, my dad recommended that I reread The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. Kind of relevant to things we're going through today. He said, this was on the way to the airport the other day. He said, this is not something new to you, but I think you will enjoy hearing somebody so eloquently and deeply put words to it, right? Okay, so I'm reading this thinking about how it relates to kind of where we are in the world in general, and untethering from reality, because we're mixing words and meanings and things like that. But then I'm reading and don't even get through the first chapter, and he's talking about horses and essentially horsemanship, and because what he's talking about, the fact that there are immutable truths in the universe. Like, there are threads of things that are real. Whether we pretend they are or not, it doesn't really matter. And so when it comes down to horsemanship, this applies exactly to what we've been talking about. Like, the difference between techniques or individual philosophy, it's all fluttering around a thread of truth. And horsemanship, in the way I think of it, is the immutable thing that runs through all the different all of our different experiences with horses, because a horse is a horse, and there is a right relationship that is just, it doesn't matter how we define it. It doesn't matter how we arrive at it. It doesn't matter whether we believe in it or don't believe, like, it's a thing.
You mean connection with a horse, two beings that are sentient, aware, feeling, connecting.
Lynn says principles are immutable truths. Yes, I think you're right, Lynn, of course. But I was thinking of that we all pick and choose maybe the principles that we might grab a hold of or prioritize. And I guess I'm thinking of something that is more base than that. Actually, C.S. Lewis was referring to a bunch of different religions, and religions isn't right. See, this is why I needed you so badly to read this. We should just wait to talk about it. But he was talking about the Tao, right? And we know there's a whole book written about this that I have not read. Some ancient philosophies, right, refer to the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I've just found it fascinating that it was all couched in the nature of the universe and beyond physicality, like the sun is shining, or the sky is blue, or this is a horse, or, beyond that. And so it just really put words to the idea that what we're talking about all the time is coming around to the harmony, or harmony is the word, right? But the resonance between us and the horse. And in those moments, there's no denying it. And whether or not you want to focus on a job or sit in the field and meditate, it doesn't really matter. You're not changing the truth of it. I sent you 2 pages. You couldn't read 2 pages.
I will say I've been reading a book that I had from grad school, and it's kind of embodies a lot of the questions that I had going into grad school and the frustrations I had with beliefs that I had going into it, how they were, a lot of them disillusioned a lot of how I was raised, and a lot of this ties around religion and spirituality and truth and the way and blah, 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 blah. So you sent it to me at a time where I was like open wounds from years ago. Like the way, like I caught that on the first page and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to sit back and think about this. Give it true time, give it actual thought rather than kind of rolling my eyes at it, because that was my gut response based on how I've been thinking and feeling lately about religion.
And that's why I couldn't pick out. And so you guys, if you wanted to read The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis, I haven't gotten past the first chapter because I'm still thinking. And it's not easy to read, of course, because the way that he puts sentences together is like night and day from a blogger.
Yeah.
Knowing how we write these days. So that's why, like, I can't just grab it and read it and have it mean something. You kind of have to get through a few pages of it so that the way the manner in which it is couched is important, which is another lesson, or another note, that Jordan Peterson thing, that all the words around the word make a difference. And the way sounds exactly technique-y, doesn't it?
Technique-y?
Meaning like the mechanics. The way sounds like the mechanics, and that's not at all what it's referring to.
Yeah.
It's simply referring to, I don't know what the words we would use nowadays. Because it's all hard to put our finger on. But I guess what I mean is there are some things that are absolutely beyond question. But again, you can't really say that because, of course, it's right to question how that manifests itself. All I'm saying is, and I suspect we can all relate to this as horse lovers, is there is a real thing, not only in how horses are and what they are, which has so many layers that, thank God, this is why we all want to gather together, because it's impossible to explain, but we all know it's a thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that true unity component is also a real thing. And it also makes me think about, you know how Pat Pirelli always said that horsemanship is natural, and Buck Brandman always says that horsemanship is the most unnatural thing in the, oh, well, maybe he doesn't say horsemanship is unnatural, but he's always talking about how this is not natural at all. And there's different ways to think about all of that.
You're working with the horse, and the horse is unchangeable in the sense that it is a horse and it has a certain nature. And teaching in English is not a thing, right? You have to work within the nature of the horse if you want to get anywhere. It's certainly on the level that we're seeking out, where there's just that one body harmony. You have to work within the way the horse operates. You have to speak horse to be really kind of basic about, and how you say it, but you have to be communicating in ways they can understand and appreciate, and all the things we talk about. So you could call that natural in that you're speaking the horse's natural language, but you're using that to ask the horse to do things that are not natural to the horse, that they wouldn't on their own, except outside of the fact that you are using your understanding of the horse and their nature to get there. In other words, you can see where both of them say what they say.
For sure. Yeah. And I guess the part that I think about a lot is that center and harmony between horse and human. While if the horse was separate and never encountered humans, maybe that wouldn't be a thing. And if the human never encountered a horse, obviously it wouldn't be a thing. But that communion between horse and human is a real thing and does naturally occur when we get right.
What's
All
interesting,
imperfect ways to say it, but I think you guys feel me.
what's interesting to me is how, and this is where the idea of, it has to be some element of working with the nature of the horse, because you talk to about anyone, at least that would seek out this type of horsemanship or something that would be called natural horsemanship, they're wanting some connection, some unity, some understanding with the horse, where the horse, it's clear, the language is clear and the horse is doing it with you rather than because you're applying some level of pressure. Everyone talks about a relationship with the horse. I mean, you ask someone why they're doing this, what they want a relationship with the horse, which it's interesting to me that that's the desire for so many, and yet I don't know how frequent that is actually what happens. I think a lot of people are looking for that because that's not what's happening, I guess is what I'm saying. They don't have that. They're wanting the fairy tale. Fairy tale isn't maybe the best, but like you think of the book you'd read as a kid, the Black Stallion or whatever, you want that kind of horse-human bond. There's something attractive to you there. But then you're out there with your horse and there's all this conflict between you because you don't really understand the nature of horses, or you're not consistent, or you don't have enough information. And so you're always having this, it's out there, I want it, I know it's there, but I'm not experiencing it like I know or I believe is possible. A lot of people, myself included, like you're hunting up something that maybe you've seen, like with Gary and the connection, and and maybe you experienced at times on certain levels and with certain horses and all that. But from my perspective, you're having to search for that through, I don't know, this is a very ineffective way of saying it, but through trial and error, through education and through searching, right? It doesn't just happen. And yet, I think on another level, just the fact that there is a draw, that there is this hope, this belief, this
Hunger.
desire, this
Hunger.
is another kind of level that I think is at the bottom of that, or the foundation of that larger desire of actually experiencing it. The fact that there is that desire, that hunger, is real, right? There's the reality on the end that's like takes a while to get there and is somewhat elusive along the journey, or it feels so far off. But there's also the base level of, I want it. Like there's something here that draws me.
And I think that's the point, right? Is that is our nature, to want that thing. And while not everybody is going to find it through horses, it's a thing that we all hunger for. My dad would call it, a relationship with Jesus Christ. That is what he would say. Like, that's what the Christians would say. And but in every spiritual practice, I suspect we're talking about hunting the same thing. Joanne says she agrees with what we're, maybe not the last part, but she agreed with it before. I doubt anyone would disagree, because the hunger for the alignment with, and I'm pretty sure that's what C.S. Lewis was talking about, the Tao is not a technique where we want to be in alignment with God, or whatever it is. Okay, so the thing about horsemanship, which is the same as every other practice, is we have to work on ourselves to be. And my dad would say that that's because of the fall of man, and we were always one thing, and we're always trying to get back to that. Well, however, you can think about that in any way you want, and you still come back. If we sit still, absolutely, that's what we want, no matter what words we use to describe it, right? And yet, what you're saying is inescapable. The understanding of the technique, the practice of learning to speak horse or to communicate with another individual. There's no way around that, and that can be pretty fun too, especially for any of us who have intellectual leanings. But the pure bits of how horses are is one of the things that I do get to see with Gary. Not that he has a deep relationship with a colt he's only gonna touch 20 times. I wouldn't say that's the same as what he has with the horses that have been his partners for a long time. But there's a truth to the way that horses understand things and the way they can change that is surprising.
Well, and that's the truth, is the unchangeable part. Like, they will not stop being a horse and being present in the moment and not judging, just experiencing. That's not changeable. But what they can learn and how they can come to accept things is very changeable. So what we're talking about now, the truth, the unarguable, is kind of a way of describing how the horse is a way, a certain, like, you really have to mess a horse up pretty strong to alter that. And once you give the horse some space to not, like if it had been altered in a horse or hampered or, you know, impinged upon, I mean, just destroyed within a horse, it can still be brought back on some level because the horse is still a horse. You just have to let it be who it is if that has been done to the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the horse has just been shut down or abused or whatever, right? They can almost operate like a ghost, same as I know people could. But that doesn't change the fact that they are still a being who has ways of interacting with the world that are consistent and unchangeable if you give them space to be who they are, as opposed to just squelching everything they are and trying to force them into something that is just not congruent with their nature.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being real specific.
No, I think
there,
you're well, it sounds exactly right to me. It makes me think, I wonder if change is the right way to say it. You know, watching a horse change their mind. I'll have to think about that. I'm not for sure, because maybe what it more is that when we slot into allowing them to be complete, or I don't know, it maybe feels like us getting in alignment, and then if my idea is complete, you know, then they will just slot into alignment as well, because us being in alignment together is natural. That's not the right word, but is in harmony with the universe. Does that make sense? So are we changing their nature? I don't know. And certainly I don't think so, but we are.
we're working with their nature to
Mm-hmm.
shape them into something that we can operate in better harmony with. We
It
have
might be just.
we have to reach for them, and in order for them not to be petrified of everything we would ask them to do, because it isn't natural for a horse to have something on their head and be directed around with their mouth. Like, one horse does not do that to another horse. Like,
But does that mean it's unnatural? Maybe.
I would say so. I don't know.
So is it what it is it really just like the horse is a puzzle?
Curiosity is certainly natural. So, like, you could say saddling a horse is unnatural, but throw a saddle on the ground, any horse eventually is going to be like, what's that? And be curious about it. So certain parts of it, you could say, are unarguably natural to the horse without our influence. But I think reaching for the horse and trying to speak horse, we should come up with a better way of saying that, and then drawing them into something that they would not experience otherwise, let's say.
So that's different. Yeah. That's different than saying it's unnatural.
Yeah.
Because our presence changes their experience.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean that our interaction is unnatural? Given the fact that our words are limited, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really depending how you're defining the words you're using there.
So this is where I think we go back to the way, meaning these threads, these immutable threads running through the universe. One could argue that it's just one thread, you know, and the horse is always assuming they're in neutral. They're operating on that thread, and we just need to get in harmony with it. And then perhaps it's 100% congruent with the universe. If we get in flow with that thread and they're already on it, then we're together. And that is not unnatural. Yeah. Depending on how you think about the fall of man and, you know, all the stuff. But okay, let's see here. What do we have? Corey says, desire not to let my horse down because I love her so much and I feel that I owe it to her to get it right. Yeah. Oh, gosh. We can all attest to that, right? Especially when I think when a horse feels a kinship to us, like, we, by hook or crook, if our heart's in the right place, they want us to make it onto that thread. They're like, come on, person, and
You finally found me here.
yeah, like probably we can all attest to a horse just like, you can do it. Come on, person, like, I'm trying. I have so much stuff going on. Lynn says aspiration to be a better person in order to have that unity with the horse versus ambition to accomplish external rewards only. Yeah, of course. Yes, for sure.
That is a part of the community too. It is kind of an all-in, kind of a humble element of, we're all accepting the fact that we have to change. We are not what we could be for our horses, in that we have to adjust to them. We can't pull them into it. If we want that harmony, we can't just try to make them otherwise and have them do our thing. It's not going to be harmonious.
Impossible.
It's outside of their nature. So I think the craving and the desire and the value of us getting together and talking about it is there's a certain level of kind of rawness or vulnerability of like, hey, I haven't got it all. I'm searching for something more. I'm wanting to, not even just searching for something more, but I'm wanting to be better than I am right now in connecting to this thread of how the horse operates, as opposed to I just want to get something accomplished.
Mm-hmm. My suspicion is that humans want to be in harmony with the universe. They want to be on that thread, or I used to always describe it as a river in the river. We want that. However we achieve that, we want that. But I think it can get lost in the conscious pursuit of the technicalities that we do need to organize. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that yesterday when I was sitting with Novella. This time of year, when it's not raining, I usually get done with my horses at home and put them in the round pen. There's some grass, which I'm going to have to put sand in there, more sand this year, but it's nice because there's some little grass in there. And I just turn them loose and sit for 10 minutes, ideally. And so it's time for me to think. It's time to just be with the horse afterwards. And I was just thinking about a little time for me to remember that is part of the practice, while remembering the curriculum, learning about the curriculum, figuring out, my techniques, all of that, right? So let's see. Jeannie, all we ever have is the present moment. That is where we meet them, full stop. Each moment is perfect. Yes. I think about what it takes to be in that moment. Haven't humans been trying to sort out how to get there since the beginning of time? That's what reading C.S. Lewis's passages made me think of. And it's like Jeannie probably has read The Abolition of Man. That's what it makes me think of is this is a universal pursuit. Isn't that interesting? That's interesting to me, that horsemanship is an iteration of a universal pursuit. So we should talk about some curriculum items.
No, I think the full stop part is, can't argue with that. Present moment is all there is. It's interesting. Like, you want to be planning ahead, thinking ahead, but you can't do anything about the ahead. You can only get to what you're planning by operating in this present moment.
Oh, what a disastrous conundrum. Do you think we have to go to the Karen Rolfe thing of like we oscillate between concentrating on both things and then maybe we wiggle to the middle? Like
I
our
mean,
concentration on the technicalities, our concentration on the feel. Yikes. So a novella story.
that was okay. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, no,
I was just
no.
gonna say that is so tough because in a way they can't be separated. You
But
know,
our attention can be focused on one and then the other. This is what meditation is about, right? You're supposed to bring your attention inwards to one thing, right? Well, like you got to be like, okay, when am I going to schedule my meditation? Well, like I don't know.
this conversation is like wild and all over the place. We're talking about future and past and immutable, and then technique and feel and
It's all one big swirl. That's the
oh, a
thing.
swirl. There you go. It's a mess, but it's a swirl. Yeah, swirl is a good word. So yeah, so I was helping Stephanie with a horse yesterday, and some of what I was, encouraging her to do, saying, try this. And at one point, I'm just like, okay, I got to feel what I would do, right? She saw it. She's like, yeah, I can see it. I'm not sure I can like execute right now. Like, I'm not sure I can imitate or do what I just saw you do and get what I just saw you get. But she's like, I'm all in. I'm going to try. And it was very much this element of their technique wise was something different. She basically was saying like, this is so different than what I've done. It feels weird, and yet I can see that is helping, and that's what's needed. So there's the technique element of it, then the kind of intellectual / emotional even element of accepting a different technique when it's or absorbing it when it feels weird relative to the way you have been trying to operate on something, adjusting your approach, and then having the feel to do so in terms of how you're presenting it to the horse, which is obviously going to be a little messy at first when you're doing something different technique wise, and then understanding the mechanics of what you want the horse to do and how to influence that. And we're still swirling.
And Lynn says a weedy swirl.
A weedy swirl. Yep, we're in the weeds.
We are in the weeds. So true. But it makes me think of how some practicing in private sometimes is well, I crave it a lot.
Lately, I've been craving. Yes, there's just something going on. It's like, I appreciate everyone around and
Totally.
so much by it. But yeah, there's sometimes it's just like, I like going out late, even though it's like, it makes me worn the next day. But sometimes those moments of just no pressure, no schedule, no time, no got to get to this it just allows you to breathe while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And
Because
be
it's a lot.
more present. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's not simple. It's not a simple pursuit. What did Ralph Waldo Emerson? I'm like literary genius these last.
You are. Wow. Look at you.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so funny. What did he say? Horsemanship is not a gentle hobby to be laid down or picked up like a game of solitaire. It's a lifelong pursuit, and once it has captured a person, it will
It's a pretty good summary. Yeah.
swallow them whole or
Yeah.
something like that. And when did he write that? Like a million years. This is not, I mean, this is way before natural horsemanship was coined, right? This is the point. It's like, it's been forever. So yes, some element. While we love that horses and horsemanship can be such a community element, like I love that so much. It's so cool because we can bond with other humans in a way that is what that we probably all crave, to find our little like-minded group, or people that can understand us in a way, right?
Because that's a level of connection.
Acceptance, yeah, and camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about the same political party. That's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about, the equivalent of digging in the dirt together and planting a garden. Like, you're gonna have some camaraderie if you do that. But then there's that other element, the private element of it, that is part and parcel for me to getting the result that I want. So I want to share a quick novella story from the other day. So I have a photo that really captures this. I guess I'll maybe publish it tomorrow. So we've been doing this Gary's Corner thing, and she is a good example, a little bit, of the horse that we're talking about having a lot of stuff on her. It's not like she's super zen and in the middle when it comes to the person, right? And it's very contextual, meaning even with me, she's different in her stall, tied to the wall, up in the arena, loose, all these things. So when we talk about being on the thread, or at least in the meeting place, she's not always there, right? So doing some things technique wise to suggest to her that there's a meeting place. So she comes around the corner, and
Brown right now.
No, up in the arena on a lead rope. No, she wasn't on a lead rope. She was at Liberty, because I wanted to start doing a few things, up in the round pen. I mean, up in the arena. The round pen, by the way, she gets in there and she's like on the defense. It's very interesting. So it's working out perfectly to just turn her loose and have her grace. I mean, she rushes through the gate. She's like just going in there. It's very interesting. So she comes around the corner at Liberty and comes straight towards me, because we've been chipping away at this for a little bit. And Debbie and I were talking about how it's not that easy to make a nice corner and have them come straight on. But, I've just been at Gary, so that's helpful, right? And so she comes straight to me. But I got to see this on video. So she comes, the dream is, that the horse will be straight when they get to you. And then, of course, the equivalent of coming into your arms. So she comes like up to me, and I put my forehead on her forehead. And we were there in that moment, but what I got to see on video is then she closed her eyes. And I felt that, but of course I couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
That is quite a visual for what we're talking about. That is a thing. No matter how much intellectual crap we put around it, that's a thing. And you could see there that she felt it, which was cool, because it's like some measure of a visual validation. Oh my gosh. So I'll show you guys that photo.
Two thoughts come to mind, not to jump maybe off of what you said there, because that's pretty cool. But with Moon, Irene's horse, it is an element of, maybe not in the forehead to forehead, softening the eye, but a moment of, you see me, you understand me, you're going to allow me to find a way without just being there mashing on me, find a way to be together. Me out on this circle, me drifting to find you. Find a way to be together in space rather than just, like that to the horse has to be, it's an element of, or a foreshadowing of the closing your eyes and just melting. I mean, that's, I think, what we're talking about when the horse is coming to believe something and trust something. It's them going, oh my gosh, is this possible? Like, will you find the thread that I operate on? Are you different, or, whatever? Like, is this possible between us, or is this experience going to be like all others I've had, or, many of the others? The reason I was thinking that is the corner. Like, in order for them to come and find you and come in straight and have it move toward the connection that you're describing there has to be them being seen, them coming around to believing that it could happen, them trusting it by repetition, by building rapport with the horse to where they go, okay, I can trust you. You are going to help me. The pressure is leading me somewhere pleasant that will take us to that corner, that draw, that hug, that whatever, where we are both there.
Yeah. So we have to be in a place to receive that. And then, so back to watching Gary do all sorts of things, and with horses that it's not even on their radar at first. Like, they're operating like, oh, I gotta get out of this, leaning on the last rope, but then it's like everything's in balance suddenly, and Gary just, every single time, that's why they figure it out so quickly, because they're like, it's such a contrast, and off they go. And then, to get to the place where you can believe that. And then especially with a horse that has all sorts of other things on their mind, and the more solid and consistent those things are, probably the more difficult it is to have them notice something different. The other day, not yesterday, but the day before, I was sending Zorro into his stall. And he's not good about going into his stall in this particular situation. There's a pillar that he has to go past. And so he wants to just rush through there. And it's not safe. It's not, there's nothing good about it, right? He's smashed people's arms before. And this is the gentlest horse, who normally is like really easy to handle. But in this particular situation, this is not good. So I stop him on the way. I'm like, okay, walk slowly. But what do you suspect that he does as he stopped? No, he's piaffing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And softly, because he's in the pillars. And it's not super drama, but it's also not right, because the external cues are signaling him to do something that has nothing to do with what I have in mind. So it had taken me quite a while to get him to notice that I have a certain feel in that moment. So, like, to just wait there and have his energy at least stay the same. So it's very rhythmic versus like, so it's very rhythmic, but then just be like, for me just to stand there and be like, that's not piaf. And him go, oh, like, yeah, why don't you walk into your stall? Right? Like, just noticing that without really the ability to do a bunch of things to cause him to, like, just a little bit waiting for him to be like, check in and be like, is this right? Like, oh my God, that took me forever because he was so sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely exactly what you just were pointing out. The longer it's been kind of ingrained, or the more they believe this is what I'm supposed to do, whether they've been intentionally trained that way or it's a result of interaction, training, whatever you call it, that they believe this is the best way to operate. One experience is maybe not enough for them to go, oh, okay, this is the other way to operate. The memo has to cross their desk a few times. Like, I'm thinking of the stacks of paper that I reference frequently. Like, I've done this 300,000 times. This is how I operate on the end of a lead rope. And so this, how I experience that pressure, or what I do with, your interaction is this. Okay, this is what's on the menu, right? We use that. And then they have one or two experiences of something different. It still isn't going to be their go-to, even if it feels better, until that memo crosses their desk a few times and they go, huh, maybe this is a better way to operate. And the more experiences they have at that, particularly with more experiences being consistent and not having another paper stacked on the real high pile, the more consistent you can be, the quicker they come to believe the new thing. But it still takes them, okay, yeah, there is something else on the menu.
Yeah, and it could be way more than a few times, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine you have 1,000 stacks of paper, or 1,000. Oh, better not be stacks. 1,000 pieces of paper on one side, and you got to move it.
Well,
How many times does that take, right?
1,000 isn't even like.
Mm-hmm.
You could have 1,000 times in one session where that horse feels the rope and goes into it.
That's what I was just thinking. Is
Yeah.
one of the things
You could have 1,000 stacks of paper. I mean, a lifetime, a 12 years lifetime with a horse. Not saying you have to accumulate 12 or thousands of new stacks, but they could literally have thousands of stacks of thousands of experiences of going into pressure and just hanging there, and then the pressure eventually going away, and therefore that's been reinforced. Or, I don't know, you probably haven't done thousands upon thousands of POFs between the pole, but he's done enough of them to believe that's the answer. So depends on what it is. It could be a lot of experience doing one thing.
Yeah, and then that a little bit too with Irene's horse, what you were saying about the leaning on the inside feet and the gymnastics affecting what's possible, and then that affecting the mental state, and around and around and around. You could have a horse that's built a certain way that has lived out on the range their whole life, and they could have 1,000 experiences of years of operating physically in a certain way that we might need to change.
Mm-hmm.
And then that takes a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It's not even 1,000 experiences. This is the life I've lived. This is how I operate. There is no other experience. This is just how I move, given my confirmation or whatever, an injury I had or some such thing.
Isn't it? So I was thinking about this when it comes to humans.
Yeah. Phantom limb.
Oh man, it's amazing how much what we experienced as kids. I never want to believe, I don't want this to be true. But what we experienced as kids and what we lived is difficult to replace without being super intentional about it. That's why we're supposed to have a spiritual leader, right?
Oh, which is why it's so stressful raising kids. It's like, oh man, I see a pattern forming that is not going to serve you in your life. How can I change it? But you can't force the change. It's like, oh my God. And then you just have to let go and go, well, I can only do so much. I'm doing my best,
I suppose changeability is the thing, the skill.
Yeah.
Showing them that how to do that, how to evolve.
Exactly, which is tough when you have a fairly rigid
personality.
Yeah, personality, really rigid way of seeing the world. Right off the bat, there hasn't been any conditioning that creates that mind. That mind is what came out of the womb, and it might be shaping immediately one way or the other, but it started with that bent, and to have to shift that or try to shift that as early as possible so those patterns don't persist and get stronger and stronger with every year. Oh,
you're doing good work.
Trying.
It is not for the faint of heart. Well,
way harder than horses, I'll say that. People say, oh, it's just the same. No, it isn't. I mean, there's parallels for damn sure, but it is way harder. Depending on the kid. Some kids are easy as pie. One niece who's just like, whoa, her parents think it's wonderful raising children. It's nothing but delight. Like, wait till you have your second child and see how that one comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
It is
they
a delight. It is a delight. It's just a very challenging delight.
Well, the implications of it and how, you know, it affects the world is, yes, I can very much appreciate the stress, thusly the opting out of such a difficult task. Isaac had Oliver on a motorcycle the other day, and none of my business. He's my nephew, not my kid, you know, and I was like, are you insane? Do you know how hard it is to create an individual like this? You cannot be just randomly, you know, risking his life. It's just funny. Since I don't have to decide, it was like, I could just pass judgment and then be like, well, I can't change that. And move on. Clearly, he's done an awesome job raising that child so far, so I probably should butt out.
Yeah.
But back to, I think what everyone's going to enjoy seeing on the Gary videos and that I love watching is how many times the paper is essentially, I guess, on the clean ones, getting stacked on the good side, where it's not just one time or one big long moment of oh, here's the thread, here's the center, it's a million moments, or I don't know, at least 10 at least 10 that I can see in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably, I'm just admitting that those are the ones that I can clearly see. Oh, and then Gary's always saying, and then you just let that soak for a second, which, duh, right? But you have to see them first.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when you think about a horse that's clean like that, or pure, or just has
Neutral, whatever.
neutral, has no experiences really to reference, and how everything at that point means something. I mean, it always means something, but at that point, like, every interaction can stack here, can stack there. And I'm thinking of, you know, you're starting a colt and, you know, they're relatively clean, maybe not right off the range, but you're doing your best and giving your level of experience or whatever, like helping Sam with, you know, one of these horses, or even myself. Like, you're like, it's not really how I wanted that to go. And it's just early on, so like, that's a new stack over here that I didn't really want to stack on. It's unfortunate because then, like, especially as early on as that happened, is fairly influential, particularly if it happens a few times over against however many other times you might be doing something desirable. However, like, say there is something rough that happens, like even like as big as someone getting bucked off, it's like, just pretend it never happened. Don't build it up in your mind, have it be like this, oh no, the horse isn't still dwelling on that. If you can give them new experiences hereafter, say, oh, you know, that was the thing that happened, sorry about that, you know, we all lived through it, you're good now. It doesn't have to be getting bucked off. But on one hand, it can be very weighty because didn't have to have that experience. On the other hand, it's not a deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it can't be helped along.
For sure. Yep. Yeah. Forgiving, very forgiving, really, overall, the process. I mean, really, really forgiving. Horses and horsemanship, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness. I wouldn't have a prayer.
Just kidding.
Otherwise.
So I want to ask about, I know you got a video and maybe just wait for them, but when you say the direction the horse is going, Gary is swinging the rope, the horse is going around to the left. Is he swinging it then counterclockwise? So it's following the horse's movement across the top of the arc.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom coming back opposite direction of the travel, bottom of the circle. Okay, that's what I tried it both ways, and it was like, oh, this doesn't seem like it's as effective doing the opposite. Yeah.
You would think it's almost exactly the same,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
I'm sure it is. Oh, you mean lead rope to last rope? I'm sure it's the same. I do not think it's the same swinging the lead rope or the last rope one way versus the other. You'd have to ask Gary, but I would not think it's the same.
Oh, yeah, right.
Vice versa, counterclockwise. Yeah.
If you're going left,
Shoulder,
counterclockwise,
withers, ears, nose, shoulder, or shoulder, withers, ears, nose, that direction. Yeah. Not nose, ears, withers, shoulders. Because then you're driving the withers into the ground.
Then you're like,
The other way, you're lifting them up. I'm looking forward to seeing.
oh,
video.
you guys are gonna die.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, what am I gonna do?
Mike was watching me doing this as I just like started messing around with it, and I'm sure. I mean, I didn't ask him, but I'm sure he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Because it didn't look. I mean, it looked real sloppy, especially because the horse already tends to put his head up, and now I've got this rope swinging around, bouncing on the noseband of the halter. He didn't say anything. I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
I could feel his judging vibes though.
Yep. And I was thinking about that when it comes to really anybody, but in particular, Gary has figured stuff out that is not something that you normally see, right? But what'll be cool, I think, for folks that get to watch the videos is you will see the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself will probably be a cool experience because it will be real simple to be like, oh, that's not how so-and-so does it. And if you intellectualize for a second, it's like, well, how many colts has so-and-so started? Even if it's a lot of colts, it's probably not going to be this amount of colts, and sent them successfully out into the world to amateurs, over and over, and touchy ones, and taking all comers. Like, give me a break, right? But then what's neat is you'll get to see the result.
No, it's an interesting piece because you have to have, well, first of all, when you're learning, it's nice to have something that's kind of consistent and systematic, and you're not all over the map. Oh, I'm taking this from this person, and then it's just a messy mess. So it's good to stick with one kind of approach or program or whatever you call, for your kind of foundation, if you will. Then you, at a certain point, like watching Gary, who might approach it different than the next person, you want to take that foundation and go, well, there's things to draw on here, but I still have to be consistent. In applying that, I have to be consistent.
Sure.
Everything else, my interaction with the horse, all of my communication has to fit together. There can't be anything conflicting. So you can draw on so-and-so's way of doing something that unarguably works. The proof is in the pudding. It gets something done that is highly desirable. It gets results that you want.
It works with their nature.
It works with their nature.
Yeah.
And yet I have to, on one level, I have to muck around with that and get good at it. Because, that can be a lot of things. Like, I know this works, but I suck at it, like, executing it and getting the results. But I know if I can find the feel and figure out how to work this with their nature, it would work. Yeah, but to make sure, as you're working it out, is this fitting with all of the rest of the way I'm interacting with this horse? And
Yeah, I need to put some sort of a video, introducing it in Horsemanship Insider to talk about it a little bit, because even Gary said, well, is this even going to be good for people to see? Because it would probably could get you in a lot of trouble if you don't know how it all fits together, if you don't know how to practice over time, and who's even going to be starting colts like this. But I think we have to leave it, trust in people that they can watch something artful like that and highly, highly masterful and just think about it. Just let it soak in. That doesn't mean you have to massively adjust necessarily anything that you're doing right away. You might have something that you're like, oh, I'm gonna look for that, or oh, I better check, like Lisa's thing, last week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, we need to make sure that the horse is good on the outside of the arc. But you wouldn't just randomly want to do that without thinking about it for a little bit. And how do I approach it? And so there has to be some soaking, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that you can really 100% relate because of where you are operating, you personally, but for a lot of us, I would just do it. I would just sit on the fence non-judgmentally and just let it wash over me. And it's not like I was going to judge Gary anyway, of course, but not trying to justify it with what I knew, not trying to balance it out and, make the accounting. Just let it wash over me, because over and over and over again, I would see the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's going to be cool. And I was gonna, since I just did the Gary video with Rook, the hobbling, and then I did the Zorro video, and then I was like, okay, well, I have a couple backing off the slobber straps videos that I think are really valuable, and everybody should be doing it, and it's super, super doable for everybody. But I think I'm gonna have to start on the Gary series, and then we'll get back to doing some things. Oh my gosh, Michael, I have had some good ideas over the last couple weeks that I can't tell anyone about. I gotta hold it in, but because I can only execute so many things at a time.
It is really cool as you go along, and it seems like this happens a bit in waves, how when you, oh, we're out of time. When you see something, you can't not see it.
Yeah.
Go a long time and feel like, oh, I can't see anything different. It's all just kind of muted, but you are seeing things that you didn't see before. You just become so comfortable with them, you're not thinking about them. But when you first dawn onto something new where you start to see it, it is like flashing lights everywhere, like, that looks right, that looks wrong, that needs this, that needs that. And eventually that little thing will still be obvious to you, but it won't be as brilliant a flash, it seems like.
Yeah, that whole once you see it, you can't unsee it thing.
Just been noticing lately how, like, wow, that's just obvious as could be, whereas it wouldn't have noticed it a year or two ago.
Yeah. That's why, did you look at that little video the Piaf to Passage video I put?
I haven't had a chance to watch on yet.
You'll like that. That was fun to be able to just show to the gang, just because it's stuff that I see within just 5 or 6 strides. But maybe if you don't see it first, it's hard. You probably won't come upon it for a long time, especially if those are not movements that you typically watch.
Yeah.
Fun little breakdown. You'll enjoy it. It only takes a second to look at. So, you guys, for next week, if everybody could just get a copy of The Abolition of Man and just suffer through the first
chapter 1.
Yeah, I don't even think you have to read the whole chapter. You'll know when you get to the part I'm talking about. But at first, it's hard to understand where he's going. You just got to keep going, keep reading, and then you'll be like, oh. And then we can talk about it for next week. And we can all shame Michael into doing it too.
It's all reading. If it wasn't handed to me at this particular week, I would have paid closer attention. But I was a little bit dismissive of all things in that vein this week, so I was like, I don't want to read this. But I was just thinking, it's amazing how the variety of what people can do with words.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you compare a tweet to a blog to a newspaper article to a magazine written for popular audience to an academic journal to a philosophical writing. I mean, it's just astounding. You can use the same, I don't know how many of the most common words, and then as it goes along, you add more technical words in or whatever, but the same freaking set of words can just be strung together to, or even this conversation, to carry meaning. I don't know, that just flashed into my mind as being amazing.
It is amazing. Astounding, such a great word. I need to bring that word back in my vocabulary. So, pop culture item. So I saw a clip yesterday from somebody who said, this is so funny to me, because sometimes you hear someone say something and you're like, okay, say it again, but slower so you can hear it, you know? Because anyway, so this guy says, I think Elon Musk is over his head because running Twitter is not as easy as colonizing Mars or electrifying the auto industry. And I'm pretty sure the guy was serious. And I'm like, okay, one more time.
Do you realize what you just said?
And like that Office line, do you want to have said that?
Yeah.
You know?
Go back and listen to yourself.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not sure how you mean that, but that's crazy when you just listen to that one sentence by itself. Oh, anyway. All right, we're over. We got to go to work.
Yep.
As I'm sure most of you guys do. Yep. So if you're not Horsemanship Insider member, I highly recommend it because the super value is coming right up. So what else do we have? That is it, I think, for this week. We'll see you next week.
Go have fun with your horses.
Yes. 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Thursday morning next week.
8:30 Central. See you then.
Okay, guys. Have a great week. Bye.